Welcome back to America's Got Talent, the finale. It has been one of the best seasons I can remember, and we have your top 2 acts. Richard Goodall!
Richard Goodall, after AGT, surprised many by returning to his job as a school janitor in Terre Haute, Indiana. Despite winning the $1 million prize as Season 19 champion, the soft-spoken custodian with powerhouse vocals captured America's hearts with his spectacular rendition of Journey's Don't Stop Believing during his audition. But why, after earning Heidi Klum's golden buzzer and eventually America's vote, Goodall chose to return to the very place his journey started? There's more to what we know. In this video, we'll discover what really happened to Richard Goodall. Keep watching till the end to find out. The man behind the voice, Richard Goodall, before AGT. In the modest town of Terre Haute, Indiana, Richard Goodall reportedly spent more than 2 decades doing something that most people never truly noticed from the outside. Yet everyone who crossed his path remembered forever. He worked as a school janitor while quietly nurturing a voice powerful enough to one day move millions. People often said he had perfected not just his custodial routine, but a kind of musical magic that he carried with him everywhere, even when he didn't realize anyone was listening. At 55, he had become far more than a maintenance worker. He was described as a comforting presence, a steady face in the hallways, and someone who had woven himself into the heart of the community through years of humble service and unexpected talent. For 23 years, he reportedly cleaned classrooms, scrubbed floors, and kept entire buildings running smoothly for the Vigo County School Corporation, moving between 3 or 4 different schools over the course of his career, before eventually settling at West Vigo Middle and High School. He explained in one interview that he had been a janitor for 23 years, saying it in a simple, unembellished way that made clear he took pride in the work. Teachers recalled that he approached each day with that same steady sense of duty, trying to make learning environments as welcoming as possible for the children who filled the hallways. What people remembered most, though, was the sound of him singing as he pushed his cart through empty corridors, a voice unexpectedly full of strength and warmth, echoing off lockers and tile floors. Students reportedly paused and listened. Some said it felt like the building came alive whenever he sang. He had always viewed music as part of who he was, long before anyone outside Terre Haute ever knew his name. He grew up singing along to his old Radio Shack stereo, tested his nerves during karaoke nights in the 1990s, and later joined gospel groups, most recently Crystal River, where he performed as far back as 2018. His co-workers said he seemed happiest with a microphone in his hand. At school events, he reliably showed up to sing "God Bless the USA" every Veterans Day, or deliver emotional performances at 5th grade graduations. His musical life even extended beyond school walls, where he reportedly performed with a classic rock cover band called Menopause, proving that his voice could stretch across genres just as easily as it filled hallways. Yet, behind all the joy he shared, he carried a deep grief after losing his wife, Patty, to cancer in 2021. He explained that when you are married for so long and then lose the person you built your world around, you are left trying to rediscover who you are without them. Music, he said, became the bridge that helped him find himself again. Then, in 2022, everything changed because of a single performance. Teachers encouraged him to pick any song he loved for an end-of-year school gathering, and he chose Journey's Don't Stop Believin', a song he had cherished for years. A teaching assistant, Mariah Denis, recorded him as he poured his heart into the performance, and she later shared it on TikTok without expecting anything unusual to happen. But by the next morning, the video had already reached 100,000 views. By the end of the weekend, it had crossed 1 million. Within days, it soared past 3 million views and caught the attention of major news outlets like Fox News and ABC News. The most surreal moment came when Steve Perry, the very voice behind Journey's original recording, shared Goodall's video on his own social media pages. For Goodall, who had always admired Perry, this recognition felt like a dream unfolding in real time. People around him said he looked stunned, as though he couldn't quite believe the world had suddenly turned toward him after so many years of singing unnoticed in school hallways. It wasn't his first brush with America's Got Talent. He had auditioned back in 2009 in Chicago, but never made it past the open rounds. But now, with the viral momentum behind him, AGT producers reached out and invited him to audition again. The opportunity was so unexpected that he admitted this would be his first time ever boarding an airplane, making the trip to Los Angeles both thrilling and intimidating. Colleagues said he walked into the airport with the same humble spirit he carried into the school every morning. For him, it reportedly wasn't about fame or fortune. It was simply the chance to share the music that had carried him through the most difficult chapters of his life. And perhaps the real question lingering underneath it all was this: how does a life that once felt so ordinary suddenly turn into a story the entire nation can't stop talking about? Because in the middle of all the quiet routines, early mornings, and swept hallways, something remarkable began to unfold. The janitor who had spent more than 2 decades sweeping floors and singing to no one in particular suddenly stepped onto a stage far bigger than anything he had ever imagined. One moment, he was humming between shifts, and the next, he was standing under the bright lights of a national platform, revealing a voice and a heart that had been waiting so patiently for its moment to shine. What followed wasn't just a performance, it became a movement. This is the AGT journey that captured America. And trust me, you'll want to watch till the very end to see how it all transformed his life. The AGT journey that captured America. When Richard Goodall stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage in 2024, it was reported that nobody, not the judges, not the audience, and certainly not Richard himself, could have predicted the extraordinary journey waiting ahead of him. People who followed his story later said that he walked onto that stage with the shaky nerves of a man experiencing a lot of firsts at once, including his very first flight. He described how he felt the front wheel lift off the Indianapolis runway and how that strange floating feeling stayed with him, saying that the whole AGT experience felt just as unreal and unstable in the best possible way. Observers said that once the audition music began, something shifted inside him, as if a quiet man had suddenly stepped out of himself and revealed a voice he had been hiding his whole life. His rendition of Journey's "Don't Stop Believin'" filled the entire theater with energy, transforming nervousness into confidence so quickly that people later wondered if even he understood how powerful his voice was. Simon Cowell reportedly called him his hero that day and said the moment felt genuinely special, and the other judges echoed the sentiment with the kind of surprise and excitement that only happens when no one sees a moment coming. Sofia Vergara described the performance as spectacular and fun, and Howie Mandel joked that Richard had cleaned up, hinting that students who knew him as a janitor were likely shouting at their screens. But it was Heidi Klum who changed the entire direction of his life with a single decision. She told him that he had knocked her off her feet before she pressed the golden buzzer, sending Richard straight into a shower of gold confetti that he later called a dream he never imagined he would live. He said he had never even been on an airplane before that trip, so the idea of standing on a massive Los Angeles stage under golden lights felt like a chapter from someone else's life. As the season continued, Richard delivered a steady lineup of emotional and passionate performances that kept pushing him forward. Reports described how he approached every song with sincerity, bringing not just his voice, but his whole heart to the stage. In the quarterfinals, he sang Michael Bolton's "How Am I Supposed to Live Without You?", dedicating it to his fiancée, Angie Vanovan, and many viewers felt that this performance revealed a deeper emotional layer of who he was. In the semifinals, he switched gears entirely by choosing Survivor's "Eye of the Tiger", a song that required grit, power, and energy, and people said that this performance proved he wasn't a one-note singer. Then, when he reached the finals, he returned to his journey roots with "Faithfully", a song he explained had special meaning because he had been singing it to Angie long before he ever imagined stepping on a stage like AGT. Judges described him as humble, kind, and inspiring, with Heidi saying she wanted him to win so bad, and Simon adding that the world needed a hero and that Richard had become exactly that for many people watching. Could anyone have imagined a school janitor becoming the emotional centerpiece of the entire season? And could anyone have predicted that millions of people would be rooting for him with genuine affection by the final episode? The peak of Richard's journey happened in the finale when he unexpectedly took the stage with Neil Schon and other members of Journey. Viewers later said that the atmosphere in the theater felt electric, as though a full-circle moment was unfolding in real time. Richard had auditioned with Don't Stop Believin', and here he was performing it again, this time as a co-frontman of the actual band he had idolized for years. Schon said they had been watching Richard all season and admired him deeply as both a singer and a human being, expressing pride in sharing the stage with him. For Richard, it was a moment beyond the wildest dream he had ever allowed himself to imagine. He said he started this whole journey with Journey and wanted to end it with them, never expecting that he would become a memorable footnote in the band's story. He even asked someone to pinch him because he genuinely could not believe any of it was real. Could anyone blame him for feeling that way? After all, how often does a man go from sweeping hallways to singing alongside his musical heroes under the brightest lights in the world? In the end, Richard Goodall was crowned the season 19 winner of America's Got Talent, taking home the $1 million prize and securing his place in the show's history. His story shocked people not because he chased fame, but because fame found him while he was simply being himself, hopeful, nervous, hardworking, and brave enough to try. His journey showed how quickly a life can change when a single moment of courage opens a door that had been closed for decades. And perhaps the real question lingering underneath it all was this: why did his journey touch people so deeply, even long after the headlines faded? Maybe it's because his story wasn't just about talent or luck. It was about courage, timing, and a kind of quiet bravery that most people don't realize they have until life pushes them forward. And perhaps that's why his story resonated with so many. It reminded people that sometimes the most unexpected heroes are the ones who never believed they could fly until the moment they finally did. His rise wasn't polished, and it wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that's what made audiences hold on to it. Now, as the dust of sudden fame settles, the real journey begins. Life after the spotlight brings new challenges, new truths, and surprises no one saw coming. And trust me, you're going to want to watch till the very end. Life after the spotlight: what changed and what didn't. After claiming his $1 million prize and the wave of nationwide admiration that came with it, Richard Goodall reportedly made a choice that left many people blinking in disbelief, wondering if they had heard correctly. Instead of chasing a glamorous new life, he returned to the same mop bucket and familiar hallway floors at West Vigo Middle and High School. People said this decision summed up everything about his character, the same down-to-earth sincerity that had already won America's heart throughout his AGT journey. He explained his choice in the plainest, almost disarming way, saying he liked his job and he liked the kids, as though the answer should have been obvious from the beginning. Was it really possible that someone who had stood on one of the biggest stages in the world still preferred the echo of school bells over the roar of concert crowds? Yet to him, those hallways reportedly offered stability in the middle of sudden fame, grounding him in a place where no one treated him like a celebrity, but simply like the same kind, steady presence they had always known. His employers at the Vigo County School Corporation welcomed him back without hesitation, fully understanding that his schedule would now include television appearances, musical performances, and unexpected travel. Instead of forcing him to choose between two different versions of himself, they adapted, offering flexible hours, time off, and the space he needed to balance an ordinary job with an extraordinary new chapter. It was said that this support allowed him to navigate a life that most people could never imagine, spending his days sweeping corridors, fixing small messes, greeting students with the same warm familiarity as before, and then performing on stages across the country whenever opportunities arose. In a way, this unusual balancing act became the perfect middle ground, letting him hold on to his sense of self while still exploring his musical gift. His job at the school reportedly offered more than a paycheck. It was a reminder of the community that had lifted him up long before America knew his name. It kept him rooted among people who saw him as Richard first and a star second. Because of this, even with the pull of fame and new possibilities, the school remained at the center of who he was. Meanwhile, his hometown of Terre Haute embraced their newly crowned celebrity with overwhelming pride. Local businesses set up congratulatory signs, as if the whole town wanted to say they had believed in him long before the spotlight found him. At the school, students and staff held parades, special assemblies, and heartfelt celebrations, turning ordinary days into shining moments of communal joy. Teachers even began weaving his journey into lessons about perseverance, determination, and the idea that dreams don't come with an expiration date. His story became a living example that extraordinary talent can exist in the most unassuming places, and that someone in a humble uniform could still change the world around them with nothing more than courage and a voice. Through all these experiences, his post-AGT life reportedly revealed a deeper truth. Success does not always mean reinventing yourself or abandoning the life you had before the world started paying attention. In his case, success meant holding on to his roots, staying close to the people who supported him before the cameras arrived, and embracing new opportunities only when they made sense for him. Many observers felt that his choice to maintain his everyday life, while stepping carefully and deliberately into fame, might actually be the healthiest and most admirable response to sudden celebrity. And perhaps the real question lingering underneath it all was this: how does someone stay so grounded when the entire world suddenly knows their name? After all, wasn't it precisely this humility, this effortless, almost disarming familiarity with who he truly was, that made people fall in love with the singing janitor in the first place? It wasn't the bright lights, the big stage, or the applause that defined him. It was the quiet strength behind his smile, the resilience woven into his story, and the way he carried both success and struggle with the same gentle grace. But what many people don't realize is that behind that warmth were personal battles and turning points that shaped him in ways the cameras never captured. And trust me, as we step into this next chapter, you're going to want to stay with me till the very end, because this is where his journey becomes truly unforgettable. Personal trials and turning points. Behind Richard Goodall's remarkable voice and sudden rise to fame, there was reportedly a much deeper and more emotional story, one shaped by grief, rediscovery, and unexpected blessings that arrived at moments when he least expected them. Those close to him often said that the journey leading him toward his AGT victory began long before he ever stepped on stage. It began in the quiet, painful years when life forced him to rebuild himself piece by piece. In 2021, he experienced the kind of heartbreak that changes a person forever when his first wife, Patty Goodall, died at age 74 after battling cancer. They had shared decades of marriage, a lifetime of routines and companionship, and the kind of quiet understanding that only grows after many years together. Losing her left what he described as an enormous void. He said in a 2024 interview that when someone is married for so long and then loses their partner, the biggest challenge becomes figuring out who they are without them. And isn't that a question many people face after deep loss? How to remember, how to move forward, and how to live again without feeling like they are betraying the past. During that painful period, music became the one thing that helped him hold himself together. He explained that singing became a bridge, something that allowed him to feel his emotions without being consumed by them. Patty's obituary painted a picture of a warm, simple, and loving woman who enjoyed sewing, traveling, and spending time with her grandchildren. She loved her dogs dearly, but her family was always her greatest source of joy. How does someone step out of a grief shaped by such a long, loving marriage? For Richard, it seemed music gave him a place to breathe until life was ready to surprise him again. But even after AGT introduced him to a world of applause and opportunity, life did not suddenly become perfect. In 2024, he reportedly faced a new health challenge requiring hernia surgery, a setback that arrived just as he was adapting to his new public visibility. This temporary slowdown forced him to rest at a time when everything around him felt like it was speeding up. Isn't it strange how life sometimes pulls a person back just when they feel ready to run ahead? Still, the people around him noted that even this pause served a purpose. It grounded him, kept him centered, and reminded him that fame doesn't stop real life from unfolding. Then came the moments that changed his life in ways he never expected. During these years of healing and rediscovery, he met Angie Vanoven, a woman who would become his partner, his encouragement, and eventually his wife. Their relationship grew steadily, turning into a love that he described as both surprising and deeply grounding. Just before the AGT finale in September 2024, they married in a quiet ceremony, and he proudly announced the news on Facebook, writing that as of 3 p.m. Pacific time, Angie and he were now Richard and Angela Van Goodall. Those who saw the announcement said it reflected more than excitement. It showed a man who had rediscovered companionship after believing that part of his life had ended forever. But Angie's influence reportedly stretched beyond marriage. With her encouragement, Richard finally began searching for his biological roots, a journey he had avoided his entire life. He explained that he had been adopted as an infant and was never told anything about his biological parents or the family he came from. For him, the search represented a step into the unknown, something he had always wondered about but never had the courage to explore. How many people go through life carrying silent questions about where they came from, hoping one day for answers that may or may not exist? In August 2024, everything changed. Richard shared astonishing news on Instagram. He had found his biological father, Hubert, a retired K-9 police officer and Army veteran. He explained that the discovery became possible thanks to Angie and an ancestry test that finally connected the missing pieces of his story. He wrote that Hubert had no children and was shocked to learn that he had a son after all these years. The most emotional part, he added, was learning that Hubert had never been told Richard existed. Friends said that revelation affected them both deeply, one man discovering he had a son late in life, and another finally meeting the person whose absence had always been a silent question. Richard noted something even more touching. His biological father shared musical talents as well, having played drums, guitar, and mandolin. That detail struck many as meaningful. Was music somehow the quiet thread connecting them across a lifetime of separation? It left people wondering whether talents, passions, and inclinations sometimes travel across generations, even when the people themselves never meet. Through grief, healing, surgery, love, self-discovery, and the spotlight of sudden fame, Richard's story reportedly unfolded like a long, winding road filled with heartbreak and hope existing side by side. The man who stepped onto the AGT stage did not simply bring a powerful voice. He brought years of loss, resilience, love rediscovered, and a family story that had waited decades to be completed. And perhaps the real question lingering underneath it all was this: how does someone keep going when life keeps testing them in ways most of us can't imagine? For him, the answer came in unexpected waves. First, music became more than just a passion. It became a reason to wake up every day, a way to connect with the world. Then, love entered his life, offering warmth and purpose he didn't know he was missing. And finally, the discovery of a father he never knew existed added a layer of meaning and mystery to his journey. Each chapter built on the last, creating a story that's impossible to put down. Stay with me till the very end. This new chapter is one you won't forget. A new chapter. After winning AGT, Richard Goodall reportedly stepped into a new chapter of his life that felt both unbelievable and deeply grounding. Because, while most reality show winners rushed headfirst into fame, he supposedly chose a softer, steadier path that allowed him to embrace musical opportunities without ever letting go of his custodial roots. People around him often said that this balance between rising celebrity and everyday normalcy was part of what made his story so different. After all, how many people go from mopping school hallways to singing on the world's biggest stages, yet still greet everyone with the same gentle humility? Not long after his win, he reportedly formed a band called Sugar Street, a group that blended heartland soul with classic rock, drawing directly from the authenticity that first made millions fall in love with the singing janitor. The band performed mostly around Terre Haute, keeping things local and familiar, and one member, Dusty Maninfiore, joked that never in his life did he imagine he would share the stage with someone who had actually performed with Journey. His words painted a picture of genuine surprise, the kind that made people smile and think, wasn't that the whole charm of Richard's story? That ordinary people could suddenly find themselves living extraordinary moments? Fans said it felt like watching regular folks get caught in a gust of destiny and somehow remaining grounded through it all. By August 2025, Richard reportedly released his debut single, Long Time Coming, a song written by Rebecca and Samuel Mizell, produced by Samuel Mizell, and featuring Jonathan Crone on guitar. The track was said to tell his life story in a way that was honest and heartfelt, and many listeners claimed it felt like hearing a janitor quietly open his soul after decades of working humbly in the background. The song appeared on Apple Music and Spotify, but the biggest moment tied to it came when he performed it live on the Season 20 AGT finale alongside Neil Schon, the founder of Journey. Some people wondered how someone who had spent so many years sweeping floors suddenly found himself singing shoulder to shoulder with rock legends. Others said the moment felt like proof that unexpected dreams could still unfold at surprising points in life. Wasn't that precisely why people connected with him so deeply? Because he represented every ordinary person who secretly wished they could be seen or heard. Behind the scenes, Richard's career reportedly continued to develop quietly but steadily. He told people that a lot was happening that he couldn't fully discuss yet, hinting at new projects, collaborations, and opportunities taking shape beyond the public eye. In June 2025, he traveled to Nashville for studio sessions, later posting online about how amazing the experience had been and teasing that more news would be shared soon. Some followers wondered if a full album was coming. Others guessed he might be preparing a memoir, especially as he hinted at reflecting on his life and the unexpected path that led from school custodial duties to standing beneath the bright lights of AGT. And really, wasn't that the kind of story people would want to read? A story about how someone who never saw himself as special ended up becoming a symbol of hope and possibility for millions? Through it all, Richard Goodall reportedly chose to move gently, stay grateful, and remain rooted in the life that shaped him long before fame. His journey so far suggested that he wasn't chasing the spotlight. He was simply honoring the gift life placed in his hands, step by step, song by song, and moment by moment, carrying the humility of a janitor and the heart of a singer who had finally been heard. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.